Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Have you ever looked through a jar of old coins, a family collection, or even a handful of loose change and wondered whether ordinary-looking quarter could actually be worth a life-changing amount of money? Today, we are taking a fascinating look at the United States. Coin number 1. This Washington quarter dated 1776, the famous bicentennial quarter, specifically a coin without a mint mark and displaying a striking red appearance. In this video, we will explore the history of this remarkable coin, explain why the 1976 date is so unusual, discuss the meaning of a missing mint mark, examine what collectors look for in the condition of a coin, and investigate the claimed market value of as much as $212,000 for an extraordinary example. Before getting excited, however, remember that a headline value is not automatically the value of every coin from the same year. Extremely high prices normally depend on authentication, grading, preservation, rarity, errors or varieties, and documented auction or market evidence. The 1976 Washington quarter is one of the most recognizable American coins ever produced. Unlike an ordinary Washington quarter carrying a single year, such as 1974 or 1977, the bicentennial quarter carries the dual date 1976. This special date was created to celebrate the 200th anniversary of American independence. The United States Mint produced special bicentennial coinage for the occasion, and the quarter became one of the most widely circulated commemorative issues in American history. Millions of Americans encountered these quarters in everyday commerce, making them familiar even to people who normally paid little attention to coins. The design of the bicentennial quarter is especially important because it differs from the standard Washington quarter design. The obverse continues to feature the familiar portrait of George Washington, facing left, while the reverse features a colonial drummer alongside a torch surrounded by 13 stars. The reverse design was created by Jack L. R. and became instantly associated with America's bicentennial celebration. The combination of the colonial drummer, the torch, the 13 stars, and the dual date gives this coin a historical personality that goes far beyond its face value of 25 cents. Now, let's focus on this phrase that makes today's coin particularly interesting: without mint mark. On United States coins, a mint mark can tell collectors where a coin was produced. Depending on the issue, letters such as P, D, or S can identify Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco production. But the absence of a mint mark does not automatically mean that a coin is rare. This is one of the most important lessons for anyone beginning to collect coins. A missing mint mark must be interpreted in the context of the specific coin, its production history, and the expected mint mark conventions for that issue. For bicentennial quarters, understanding the different versions is essential. Philadelphia-produced copper-nickel clad bicentennial quarters generally do not carry a mint mark, while Denver examples carry a D mint mark and San Francisco examples carry an S mint mark. Therefore, finding a 1976 quarter without a mint mark is not by itself proof that the coin is an extraordinary rarity. In fact, millions of Philadelphia examples exist. What makes a particular specimen valuable is usually a combination of factors such as exceptional condition, unusual composition, recognized errors or varieties, proof characteristics, certification, and verifiable market demand. This brings us to another fascinating part of our discussion: the word red. When collectors describe coins as red, they are often referring to the color designation used for copper coins, particularly Lincoln cents. A standard 1976 copper-nickel clad Washington quarter is not normally assigned a red color designation in the same way a copper Lincoln cent might be. So if you encounter a listing describing a bicentennial quarter as being in red condition, it is important to understand exactly what the seller or source means. The coin may have a reddish appearance caused by environmental exposure, toning, photography, lighting, or another surface characteristic rather than a formal grading designation. The difference between an interesting coin and a genuinely valuable coin can sometimes be enormous. Two coins from the same year can look almost identical to an inexperienced observer, but have dramatically different values after professional examination. One may be a common circulated example worth little more than face value, while another may contain an unusual minting characteristic that attracts specialists. This is why serious collectors never rely solely on the date and mint mark when determining value. Another reason these coins remain popular is the enormous historical significance of the bicentennial celebration. In 1976, the United States was commemorating 2 centuries since the Declaration of Independence. The government, museums, schools, businesses, and communities across the country participated in celebrations. Coins became one of the most accessible ways for ordinary Americans to participate in the anniversary. Every time someone spent a bicentennial quarter, they were physically handling a small piece of a nationwide historical celebration. Imagine receiving one of these quarters from a store in 1976. At the time, it was simply 25 cents. Nobody knew exactly how future generations would view the coin. A child might have placed it in a piggy bank. A parent might have kept a few examples in a drawer. Someone else might have spent it without giving it a second thought. Decades later, collectors began examining these coins more carefully, searching for unusual varieties, errors, high-grade examples, and unusual characteristics. That is one of the most exciting aspects of coin collecting. The historical story of a coin does not end when it leaves the mint. It continues through every person who owns it. A coin can travel across states, sit inside a collection for decades, pass through several generations, and eventually appear at an auction where specialists examine it under powerful magnification. Its journey can become almost as interesting as its design. A genuine 6-figure valuation would normally require extraordinary evidence. The coin would need to be authenticated by a respected professional grading service or qualified specialist, and the characteristics responsible for the value would need to be clearly documented. If the coin contains an error, the error should be recognized and verified. If the value depends on an exceptionally high grade, the grading information and population data become important. If the value depends on unusual composition, metallurgical testing and certification may be necessary. The first thing you should do if you discover a potentially valuable bicentennial quarter is avoid cleaning it. This is one of the most important rules in coin collecting. Many people see an old coin covered with dirt or discoloration and immediately want to polish it. Unfortunately, cleaning can permanently damage the surface and may reduce collector appeal. Scratches, unnatural shine, chemical residue, and altered surfaces can all become problems during professional evaluation. The edge is another area that deserves attention. Bicentennial quarters can have different compositions, and the edge may provide clues. A copper-nickel clad coin normally shows a visible copper-colored core between outer layers, while a silver-clad version has a different appearance. However, lighting and wear can make visual identification difficult. If composition is important to the valuation, professional testing is a much safer approach than relying on your eyes alone. Condition is also critical. A heavily circulated quarter may have scratches, flattened details, contact marks, and wear across the highest points of the design. An uncirculated coin may retain much of its original mint luster and sharp detail. But even among uncirculated coins, there are enormous differences. A coin with many contact marks may grade considerably lower than an exceptionally preserved specimen. A top-grade coin can command substantial premiums when collectors compete for it. The reverse of the bicentennial quarter deserves special attention. The colonial drummer is one of the most memorable designs ever placed on a U.S. circulating quarter. The detail in the drum, clothing, hands, and surrounding stars creates numerous areas that collectors can examine for strike quality and preservation. The torch and 13 stars symbolize the original 13 colonies, reinforcing the historical meaning of the design. The obverse retains the portrait of George Washington, whose image had appeared on the quarter since 1932, with a temporary interruption in the circulating series only around the changes associated with the bicentennial issue. The dual date 1776-1976 is perhaps the most immediately recognizable feature. Instead of simply marking the year the coin was minted, the date connects the coin directly to the 200-year anniversary. Another interesting point is that bicentennial quarters were produced in enormous quantities. This means that the ordinary examples are not rare simply because they are old. A coin being nearly 50 years old does not automatically make it scarce. Rarity depends on surviving population, original production, condition, variety, error status, and collector demand. This is an essential principle for anyone watching coin value videos online. At the same time, you should never ignore a coin simply because it appears ordinary. Some important varieties and errors are subtle. A tiny design difference, an unusual strike, or a specific production anomaly can dramatically change collector interest. That is why experienced numismatists often examine coins carefully under magnification, rather than relying on a quick visual inspection. There is also a major difference between a coin being rare and being valuable. Some coins are rare but have little demand. Other coins are relatively available but highly desirable because of historical importance, condition, or famous varieties. The highest prices generally occur when rarity and strong collector demand meet. The 1776-1976 bicentennial quarter has tremendous collector recognition because nearly everyone who grew up around the 1976 celebration has seen one. That recognition gives the coin an enduring place in American numismatic culture. It is a gateway coin for many beginning collectors because it combines an unusual date, a special reverse, and a major historical event. Now imagine finding a pristine example in an old family collection. The coin has never circulated, its surfaces are remarkably clean, the design is sharply struck, and its appearance is attractive. Perhaps you also notice something unusual around the lettering or date. This is exactly the kind of situation where you should stop and investigate rather than immediately spending or selling the coin. Take clear photographs of both sides under neutral lighting. Photograph the edge as well. Record the coin's weight with an accurate digital scale if you have one, but don't scratch or alter it to perform tests. Compare the measurements with published specifications. If the coin appears to have an error, document the exact location and nature of the suspected error. It is also important to distinguish post-mint damage from genuine minting errors. A coin can be dropped, squeezed, scraped, chemically altered, heated, or exposed to harsh environmental conditions after leaving the mint. Such damage may produce strange shapes or colors, but it generally does not create a premium collectible error. Genuine errors originate during the minting process and typically have characteristics consistent with known production mistakes. The color described as red deserves special caution. A natural red or reddish appearance on a coin can be visually attractive, but collectors evaluate color differently depending on the metal and series. For a clad quarter, unusual reddish coloration may be environmental toning, staining, or surface alteration, rather than a recognized grading category. Therefore, a red-looking bicentennial quarter should not automatically be assigned a premium value merely because of its color. There is something special about holding a coin that was created to celebrate 2 centuries of American history. The 1776-1976 quarter connects the everyday world of pocket change with the larger story of the United States. It represents a moment when the country looked back at its origins while celebrating its future. The colonial drummer on the reverse is more than decoration. He represents the spirit of the American Revolution and the nation's early history. The torch represents the pursuit of liberty and the continuation of the American experiment. The 13 stars connect the design to the original 13 colonies. And the dual date, 1776-1976, makes the purpose of the coin unmistakable. For collectors, these details create a combination of history, design, and numismatic curiosity. Even a common bicentennial quarter can be an enjoyable addition to a collection, but when a coin shows unusual characteristics, extraordinary preservation, or a verified minting error, the story can become much more interesting. Next, coin number 2. This USA Washington quarter dated 1988 with a D mint mark, described here as being in very fine condition, and we will discuss the claimed market value of $212. Before we get into the details, however, it is important to understand that a 6-figure valuation for a 1988 with D Washington quarter would be highly unusual and would require extraordinary evidence. The value of a collectible coin is determined by factors such as authenticity, grade, rarity, mint errors, varieties, certification, auction history, and actual buyer demand. The Washington quarter is one of the most recognizable American coins ever produced. Its familiar portrait of George Washington has been part of American coinage for generations, and millions of people have handled Washington quarters without ever wondering whether one might have an unusual characteristic. The 1988 issue belongs to the modern era of Washington quarters, a period when enormous quantities of coins were produced for everyday commerce. Let us begin with this basic identity of the coin. This is a Washington quarter dated 1988, carrying the D mint mark associated with the Denver Mint. The denomination is 25 cents, and the obverse features a portrait of George Washington facing left. The reverse design used during this period features an eagle with outstretched wings, surrounded by inscriptions identifying the United States of America, the denomination, and the national motto. These familiar designs make the coin instantly recognizable, but collectors know that two coins that look almost identical to the casual observer can sometimes have dramatically different collectible values. The D mint mark is especially important for identification. On modern United States coins, mint marks tell us where a coin was produced. For this quarter, the D indicates Denver. Mint marks are one of the first things collectors examine when they find an older American coin, because different mints produce different quantities, and certain dates, varieties, and errors can be associated with particular facilities. However, the presence of a D mint mark alone does not automatically make a 1988 quarter rare. A collector must evaluate the entire coin, including its condition and any unusual features. Now let us talk about the phrase, very fine condition. In coin collecting, condition matters enormously. A very fine coin has experienced noticeable circulation, but important design details remain visible. There will generally be wear on the highest points of the design, but the major lettering, portrait details, and other features should still be clearly recognizable. A circulated coin can show scratches, contact marks, discoloration, and surface wear. The exact grade depends on the severity and location of these characteristics, and professional grading services use standardized criteria when assigning numerical grades. So what could potentially make an ordinary-looking modern quarter extraordinary? One possibility is a major mint error. Coins are manufactured through a complex industrial process involving planchets, dies, presses, striking pressure, alignment, quality control, and high-speed production. When something goes wrong during that process, the resulting coin can sometimes display an unusual error. Some mint errors are minor and have little effect on value, while dramatic and authenticated errors can become highly desirable to collectors. For example, collectors may encounter coins with unusual striking characteristics, off-center strikes, broad strikes, multiple strikes, die-related problems, wrong planchets, or other recognized minting abnormalities. The importance of any particular error depends on how clearly it can be identified, whether it occurred during the minting process, how rare the error is, and how much collectors are willing to pay for it. A strange-looking coin is not automatically a valuable error coin. Damage that happened after the coin left the mint can sometimes imitate genuine mint errors, so authentication is essential. Another factor is variety attribution. Coin dies can sometimes contain distinctive characteristics that allow specialists to separate one die variety from another. Some varieties are well documented and actively collected. Others may be extremely difficult to identify without specialized knowledge. If a 1988 with D quarter possesses an authenticated and highly sought-after variety, that characteristic could potentially make it more interesting than an ordinary example. But again, the exact attribution must be supported by reliable numismatic evidence. The D mint mark should also be examined carefully. The location, shape, and appearance of the mint mark can provide useful information. Collectors sometimes become excited when they see something that appears to be doubling or an unusual mint mark feature, but not every apparent doubling is significant. Machine doubling, die deterioration, contact damage, and other effects can be mistaken for valuable varieties. That is why authentication and comparison with known examples are so important. If you believe you have a 1988 with D Washington quarter that could potentially be worth an extraordinary amount, do not clean it. This is one of the most important rules for coin collectors. Cleaning a coin may remove original surface characteristics and can permanently reduce its desirability. Even if the coin looks dirty, dark, dull, or discolored, aggressive polishing can turn a potentially collectible coin into a damaged example. Instead, leave the coin in its existing condition and seek professional advice. This is an important lesson for everyone who enjoys coin collecting. A coin's value is not determined simply by its age. In fact, some very old coins can be relatively inexpensive because large quantities survived, while much newer coins can be extremely valuable when they possess rare errors, varieties, exceptional grades, or important historical significance. Age is only one piece of the puzzle. The same principle applies to color and appearance. A coin that looks unusually dark, bright, reddish, greenish, or black may attract attention, but color alone does not necessarily indicate rarity. Environmental exposure, storage conditions, chemical reactions, contamination, cleaning, and artificial treatments can change the appearance of a coin. A genuine mint characteristic should be distinguished from something that happened after the coin entered circulation. Suppose you find a 1988 with D Washington quarter in an old collection. The first step should be identification. Confirm the denomination, date, and mint mark. The second step should be condition assessment. Look at the amount of wear and the preservation of the design. The third step should be error and variety inspection. Compare unusual characteristics with reliable numismatic references. The fourth step should be authentication if the coin appears genuinely exceptional. Only after these steps should you begin discussing a high valuation. These questions can transform a simple coin search into a fascinating investigation. Instead of asking only, "How much is my quarter worth?" ask, "What exactly do I have and what evidence supports its value?" That mindset is much more useful for serious collecting. Another factor is provenance. In rare cases, the history of a particular coin can contribute to its importance. A coin that can be traced to a famous collection, an important discovery, or a documented mint error group may attract additional attention. However, provenance should also be supported by credible documentation. A story passed down through a family can be fascinating, but documentation is what helps establish a verifiable chain of ownership. There is also something exciting about the possibility of discovery. Millions of people have searched through pocket change, inherited collections, old jars, coin rolls, estate lots, and forgotten boxes looking for unusual coins. Most finds are ordinary, but occasionally collectors discover varieties and errors that deserve further investigation. The thrill is not just about money. It is about understanding the manufacturing history of the coin and discovering something unusual in an object that most people would overlook. The 1988 with D Washington quarter is a perfect example of why close examination matters. To the average person, it is simply a 25-cent piece. To a collector, it is the product of a particular year, a particular mint, a particular manufacturing process, and a particular set of dies and planchets. Every mark and design element can potentially tell part of the coin's story. If you are searching your own collection, begin with a bright but non-damaging light source and a magnifying glass. Examine the date first. Then locate the D mint mark. Check both sides of the coin carefully. Pay attention to areas where the design appears doubled, distorted, missing, unusually broad, or struck outside its normal position. But remember that visual excitement is only the beginning. Confirmation is the key. Never rely on a single photograph or a single online comment to establish a six-figure valuation. If the coin genuinely appears exceptional, consider submitting it to a reputable professional grading and authentication service or showing it to an experienced numismatist. The cost of professional evaluation can be small compared with the potential financial consequences of selling a rare coin without proper identification. And if someone offers you a huge amount of money immediately for your coin, slow down. Do not feel pressured to sell. Obtain multiple opinions when appropriate. Research comparable sales, verify the buyer, and understand exactly what you are selling. Rare coins can be valuable assets, and rushed decisions can lead to regret. The story of the 1988 with D Washington quarter also teaches us something broader about American coinage. Everyday coins connect ordinary people to history. Washington's portrait appears in millions of transactions, but each coin represents a moment in the nation's monetary history. The 1988 D quarter was manufactured during a period of major American economic and technological development, and surviving examples continue to circulate through collections decades later. If you have a 1988 with D quarter that looks unusual, however, do not dismiss it immediately. Examine it carefully. Preserve it. Compare it with trustworthy references. Photograph it. Seek professional authentication if the evidence suggests something unusual. And most importantly, separate confirmed facts from online claims. Imagine the excitement of opening an old coin box and finding a 1988 with D Washington quarter that looks slightly different from the others. Maybe the strike is unusual. Maybe the plancher appears wrong. Maybe there is a dramatic off-center strike. Maybe there is a documented variety. That is where the real treasure hunt begins. The discovery itself is exciting because you have a question that needs to be answered. The most valuable lesson for new collectors is simple. Look closely, but verify carefully. A coin does not become valuable because someone places a huge number beside it. Value comes from rarity, authenticity, condition, demand, and evidence of what collectors are actually willing to pay. So before you throw that old 1988 with D Washington quarter into a spending pile, take another look. Check the date. Check the D mint mark. Examine Washington's portrait. Study the reverse. Look at the edge. Search for genuine mint-made characteristics rather than post-mint damage. And if you believe you have discovered something truly unusual, protect the coin and get it evaluated by a qualified professional. The possibility of finding something special is one of the reasons coin collecting remains such an exciting hobby. A quarter may have a face value of just 25 cents, but its history can be worth much more. And in the rarest circumstances, a seemingly ordinary coin can become a remarkable collectible. Next coin, number 3. This USA Washington quarter dated 1971, with a D mint mark, described as being in very fine condition and connected to a claimed market value of $212. At first glance, this coin may look like an ordinary piece of American pocket change, but the world of coin collecting is filled with fascinating varieties, mint errors, unusual strikes, and exceptional specimens. The 1971 with D Washington quarter belongs to an important period in the history of American coinage. The traditional Washington quarter design had already become deeply familiar to Americans, but the composition of the coin had changed several years earlier. Beginning in 1965, regular Washington quarters were produced in copper-nickel clad composition rather than the 90% silver composition used on earlier quarters. The 1971 with D quarter is therefore a clad quarter, with a copper core and copper-nickel outer layers. Reference information lists the coin at approximately 24.3 millimeters in diameter and about 5.67 grams in weight, with a reeded edge. The D mint mark is one of the first details collectors should check. It identifies the Denver Mint as the production facility. On Washington quarters from this period, the mint mark appears on the obverse near Washington's hair ribbon. The 1971 with D quarter was struck at Denver in enormous numbers, with more than 258 million pieces recorded. That large production number is one of the reasons an ordinary circulated example should not automatically be considered rare. Now let's focus on this condition described in today's topic. Very fine. In professional coin grading, very fine indicates that a coin has circulated and shows noticeable wear, but substantial design detail remains. A very fine quarter will normally show wear on the highest portions of Washington's portrait and on the reverse design, while the main inscriptions and overall design remain clearly visible. The precise grade depends on the amount and location of wear, along with other factors affecting the coin's surfaces. So what could potentially transform an ordinary quarter into a major numismatic discovery? The answer could involve a dramatic mint error, a rare die variety, an unusual plancher, an exceptional strike, or another characteristic that makes the coin substantially different from the millions of normal examples produced. Mint errors are among the most exciting discoveries in coin collecting. The process of manufacturing coins involves blank planchets, dies, presses, mechanical feeding systems, alignment, striking pressure, and quality control procedures. When something goes wrong during that process, the resulting coin can sometimes display a genuine mint-made error. Some errors are minor and have little additional value, while dramatic and authenticated errors can become highly desirable to collectors. One of the first things to inspect on a 1971 with D quarter is the overall strike. Does the design appear centered? Are the letters and numbers properly formed? Does the coin appear to have been struck more than once? Is there an unusual area where the design seems stretched or missing? A major off-center strike can be visually dramatic, while other errors may require magnification and comparison with authenticated examples. However, collectors should be extremely careful when examining unusual-looking coins. Damage that happens after a coin leaves the mint can sometimes look like a mint error. A coin may be struck against another object, scratched, squeezed, exposed to chemicals, heated, polished, or otherwise damaged. Such post-mint damage generally does not carry the same significance as a genuine mint error. This is why professional authentication is so important when a coin appears to have extraordinary characteristics. The obverse of the 1971 with D Washington quarter provides several areas for close inspection. Start with the date, 1971. Make sure the digits have the correct shape and spacing. Then examine the word Liberty around the upper edge and the motto, "In God We Trust," near Washington's portrait. Pay close attention to Washington's hair, cheek, jaw, and surrounding fields. These areas can show circulation wear, contact marks, scratches, and other characteristics that help determine the coin's condition. The mint mark deserves special attention as well. The D should be examined under magnification to see whether there are unusual features that correspond to a recognized variety. But collectors should not assume that every apparent doubled letter or mint mark is valuable. Mechanical effects and damage can produce misleading shapes. A genuine variety needs to be identified against established references or authenticated by a professional grading service. The reverse of the coin is equally important. The 1971 with D Washington quarter features the familiar eagle design created for the Washington quarter series. The eagle's wings are spread and the surrounding inscriptions identify the United States and denomination. Examine the lettering, eagle, arrows, leaves, and surrounding fields carefully. Look for unusual doubling, missing details, dramatic strike problems, or other features that appear to be part of the original minting process. The edge should not be ignored. Because this is a clad quarter, the edge can reveal important information about the coin's construction. A normal clad quarter should show the characteristic layered appearance of its copper-nickel outer surfaces and copper center. If the edge looks dramatically different, that could be worth investigating. Wrong planchet and clad layer errors are among the types of abnormalities that can attract collector interest, although professional authentication is necessary before making any major valuation claim. Weight is another useful diagnostic tool. A genuine 1971 with D Washington quarter should be close to its standard weight. If a coin is substantially heavier or lighter than expected, there may be an explanation worth investigating. But even here, caution is necessary. Dirt, damage, corrosion, wear, or inaccurate scales can create misleading results. A weight difference alone does not prove that a coin is a rare mint error. One of the most important lessons for anyone searching for valuable coins is to distinguish between a coin's face value, its normal collectible value, and the value of a truly extraordinary specimen. The face value of this coin is 25 cents. Its ordinary collectible value may be only modestly above face value depending on condition. But a rare, authenticated error or exceptional specimen could potentially command a much higher price if collectors compete for it. For example, imagine that a coin described as a 1971 with D quarter were discovered with a spectacular mint error that was previously unknown or exceptionally rare. If experts authenticated that error and collectors considered it important, the coin could attract significant attention. The final selling price would then depend on rarity, demand, condition, provenance, and competition among buyers. Professional certification is another major factor. If a coin appears to be an extraordinary error or variety, having it authenticated and graded by a recognized professional service can provide much stronger evidence than an informal online opinion. Certification can also help establish the coin's condition and make it easier for potential buyers to evaluate the piece. If you believe you have a valuable 1971 with D Washington quarter, do not clean it. This advice cannot be emphasized enough. Cleaning a coin may permanently damage its original surfaces. Scrubbing, polishing, rubbing, or using chemicals can leave hairlines and other evidence of alteration. Even if the coin looks dirty, unusual toning or surface coloration should not be removed without professional guidance. The history of the 1971 with D quarter itself is also fascinating. More than 258 million were produced at Denver, meaning this coin was intended for everyday commerce. Think about how many people may have handled these quarters over the decades. A single coin could have traveled through shops, restaurants, banks, vending machines, cash registers, and family collections. Every mark on a circulated example may reflect part of that journey. The difference between circulated and uncirculated coins can also be dramatic. A very fine coin has evidence of circulation, while an uncirculated coin retains much more of its original detail and surface quality. PCGS's current pricer guide shows that the 1971 with D issue becomes substantially more valuable at higher mint state grades, with its guide listing increasingly higher values for top-quality certified examples. This illustrates how condition can influence the market, even when the date itself is not rare. Imagine finding one of these quarters in an old family collection. The first reaction might be excitement when you notice the 1971 date and D mint mark. The next step should be careful observation, rather than immediately assuming the coin is worth a fortune. Take photographs. Record the weight if you have an accurate scale. Examine both sides. Study the edge. Compare the coin with reputable references. If there is a genuine anomaly, then seek expert evaluation. Another mistake beginners sometimes make is believing that unusual color automatically means rarity. A coin that appears dark, golden, reddish, greenish, or unusually shiny may simply have experienced environmental exposure or chemical changes. Color can be attractive, but it does not automatically create a six-figure valuation. In some cases, artificial toning or cleaning can actually reduce collector appeal. The 1971 with D Washington quarter also provides a wonderful example of why coin collecting is about education rather than simply chasing high prices. When collectors learn about minting processes, they become better at identifying genuine errors. When they learn grading standards, they become better at evaluating condition. When they study auction records, they become better at understanding market value. And when they learn authentication techniques, they become less vulnerable to misleading online claims. If you are building a collection, consider organizing your coins by date and mint mark. Keep your 1971 with D quarter separate from similar dates when you are conducting research. Use magnification to examine the surfaces. Compare photographs of known varieties. Keep notes about unusual characteristics. Over time, these habits can greatly improve your ability to recognize important coins. If you enjoyed this detailed exploration of the 1971 with D Washington quarter, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more coin discoveries, rare coin stories, and American numismatic history. Share this video with other collectors and anyone who enjoys checking old coins for unusual dates, mint marks, varieties, and errors. Remember, never clean a potentially valuable coin, never rely on a huge online price without evidence, and always verify extraordinary claims through reliable numismatic sources and professional authentication. A quarter can look ordinary while hiding an interesting story, but discovering that story requires patience, careful observation, and good research. The 1971 with D Washington quarter is a fascinating coin to study, not because every example is worth a fortune, but because it demonstrates how much there is to learn from even an everyday piece of American change. The D mint mark connects it to Denver, The 1971 date places it in an important period of U.S. coinage, and its clad construction tells us about the evolution of American circulating money. If a particular example also contains a genuine and exceptionally rare mint error or variety, that is when the story becomes truly extraordinary.